Call the meeting to order.
Okay. The first item on the agenda are the minutes of the Strategic Priorities Administration and Protective Services Standing Committee meeting held Monday, November 23rd, 2009. The recommendation is that the minutes be approved.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Lynch, seconded by Councillor Reamer. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
And item number 2 is report of Deputy City Manager regarding the Strategic Plan 2009 with an introduction by our Deputy City Manager, John Dumont.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Your Worship. In 2006, Coquitlam produced its current strategic plan titled Coquitlam 2021, taking a 15-year lookout for where the city wanted to be. At that time, it was envisioned that the plan would be reviewed and updated as required on a 3-year interval, and the report and strategic plan before Council tonight represents the first 3-year review of Coquitlam 2021. The plan involved an extensive public consultation process, and the document before Council is meant to be a high-level plan of where the city wants to be in 15 years' time. And underneath that plan, there's a series of other processes that the city has in terms of long-range planning, as well as our business plan, priorities, and financial plan that flow from the strategic plan. Sonia Santa Rosa, our Manager of Corporate Planning, is here tonight to give a little presentation in terms of this update, and with that I will turn it over to Sonia.
Good afternoon, and as Mr. Dumont mentioned, I'll give you a brief overview of the process that we undertook to get to the strategic plan where we are today. So, as mentioned, this is an update to the 2021 strategic plan that was created in 2006, and it provides a guide to activities, decisions, and service delivery. The strategic plan that's before you as attachment E in your report is developed based on input received from residents, businesses, employees, and other stakeholders. It includes a vision, mission, values, and strategic goals for the organization, and it builds on the 4 cornerstones that support the city's vision to live, work, play, and leadership. As you're aware, based on the activities and work that was done in the past year, our annual business plan priorities are developed from these goals, and we've also developed 2010 business plan priorities that will be before Council for consideration early in the new year. And we track progress towards these goals, and that is given to you by way of the trimester report that you see every 4 months. The strategic plan also forms the foundation for some of our long-range planning for the city, such as our citywide OCP and our 5-year financial plan, and as well our business plan priorities. In terms of the public consultation process, there were 4 different phases. First was an Ipsos Reid telephone survey that took place in April and May, and that was our statistically valid survey. It was a sample size of 665 residents of Coquitlam that were surveyed. In May, we put a very similar version of that survey on our website for the public, and we had 92 respondents. 89 of those were Coquitlam residents. In May as well, and again, a very similar version of that survey went out to our staff on our website, and 147 responded to that survey, with 65 of those being residents of Coquitlam. And finally, we had a public consultation session workshop here in our council chambers in May, and we had 14 members attend that session. So here is the vision that has been developed that we're continuing to build on for Coquitlam. And this is an opportunity for Council to reaffirm that vision. And essentially a vision statement outlines what the organization wants to be. It concentrates on the future. So the vision statement before you is that Coquitlam in 2021 will be a community of neighborhoods within a vibrant urban city where people of all ages, abilities, and cultures choose to live, learn, work, and play. And I'm happy to take questions or comments along the way as well. In terms of the mission statement that, again, we're asking Council to reaffirm, a mission statement tells you essentially what the fundamental purpose of the organization is, and it informs you of the desired level of performance for the organization as well. So the mission statement before you is to sustain Coquitlam's high quality of life for current and future generations We serve the public interest through leadership, innovation, and a focus on community priorities and strengths. And again, this builds on the mission that was developed in 2006. The values that have been incorporated in the strategic plan are to treat people fairly, build organizational and community capacity, inform, involve, and inspire, and innovate to sustain community quality of life. There's a number of sub-bullets as well that are included in the attachment to the report. There were a number of key drivers of change that were taken into consideration in the development of the plan, and essentially those were that Coquitlam is a growing and changing population. We looked at affordability and accessibility of housing. We looked at the changing global and regional economy, and that's changed significantly over the last 3 years. We looked at managing our costs and delivering value at the same time, and as well environmental and ecological considerations were taken into account. And those are detailed in the attached strategic plan. So based on those 4 public consultation opportunities as well as the key drivers of change that I just highlighted, the emerging themes were about 14 emerging themes that resulted. And they're listed alphabetically, so they're of equal importance. Doesn't mean that accountability is the most important. So I'll just quickly read through the list. Accountability, affordable housing, creation of local jobs, diversity, economic growth and stability, energy management and climate protection, environmental protection, fiscal responsibility and financial management, green and open spaces, public safety, recreation and cultural opportunities, strategic partnerships, sustainability of our city services and policies, and transportation. So based on all of the input that we received, those were the 14 emerging themes that came out of that input. So based on that information and those themes, it was pretty apparent that they tied in quite nicely with the goals that had already been in place. And so we will continue to build on these goals, and the input that was received and the key drivers of change have been implemented or integrated into the strategic directions which fall underneath each of the strategic goals to make them relevant and current for today. So I'll just quickly go through the 5 strategic goals and their directions. Strengthen neighborhoods is the first strategic goal, and the directions under that, and essentially the directions will help guide us to achieving the goal. So in order to strengthen neighborhoods, we will foster citizen and neighborhood engagement, protect and enhance history, heritage, and character of the neighborhoods. We'll develop a suitable mix of housing types and affordability. We'll enhance travel to and from neighborhoods and create safe and affordable transportation system that offers choices. We'll enhance community safety, and we'll foster awareness of our diverse cultural groups. Our second goal, to expand local jobs and local prosperity, and the recently adopted Economic Action Plan was incorporated into the strategic directions for this particular goal. They're to foster an innovative, entrepreneurial, and creative business environment to support and attract business. We're going to focus on our neighborhood commercial revitalization. We'll leverage our community assets such as QNet and Riverview lands. We'll capitalize on our major transportation infrastructure, build cultural diversity to create trade and investment opportunities, and we'll support retention, expansion, and attraction of business to strengthen our economic base. Our third goal, to increase active participation and creativity, will ensure that there's full active participation of all in sport and other physical recreation and leisure activities, and we'll address the barriers to participation. We'll develop a sustainable system of parks and open space, foster creativity and innovation through design of buildings and public spaces. We'll improve our urban cultural environment and make it more accessible to all, and we'll also support a learning community. Our fourth goal, to enhance sustainability of city services and infrastructure, will ensure that we have prudent financial management policies, asset replacement, and long-range financial planning. We'll develop sustainable infrastructure and land management program. We'll increase our taxpayers' confidence in how our tax dollars are being spent. We'll promote the conservation of our environmental assets, our resources, and energy, and we'll minimize the impact of the city's processes and infrastructure on the environment. And finally, our fifth goal is to achieve excellence in city governance, and through that we'll value diversity. will respond and be equitable to the differing needs of the community. And we're doing that already, or we're beginning that process through the development of our multicultural strategic plan. We'll nurture citizen involvement and civic engagement. We'll focus on service excellence, innovation, high standards, and continuous improvement of our processes. We'll support, encourage, and empower staff to live the city's values. We'll foster a positive team environment. And we'll develop strategic partnerships with businesses, community groups, and other government organizations. So finally, in terms of next steps, just a brief sort of communication strategy and how we plan to roll out the strategic plan once Council endorses it, is we'll ensure that it's up on our city website and on City Soup. We'll put out newspaper ads advertising our new and updated strategic plan. We'll have posters at our various city facilities, and we'll develop a brochure that's a more concise version of the plan. And we'll roll it out at the City Manager Roadshow that takes place in late winter, early spring, as well as staff meetings as well, so that our staff can understand what the goals are and have buy-in and understand how their day-to-day activities contribute to each of these goals. So finally, the staff recommendation before you is that Council endorse Strategic Plan 2009. Any questions?
Thank you. Councillor Reid.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a good report. I like it lots. But what I would like tonight is to receive this instead of endorsing it. And the reason, especially on the communications strategy that we just saw, I think we're having our first workshop, and through that, I think there might be some other things that come out or different things. And I wonder, Mr. Mayor, if we could receive this, and it's also a great base for our workshop, and you know, we can use lots of the things in here as things to talk about, and I would like to receive it tonight and then hopefully endorse it or add our changes in or do whatever we can do when we come back to make sure that we're all moving over, council and staff, on the same page. Thank you.
Okay, it's not a motion yet, but
I did ask.
Okay, just you asked a question. And
okay.
Among our options are to endorse it or to receive it without endorsing it, or to adopt it in principle pending discussion at a further session. And I might suggest that might be a better method of doing it. I just don't want to be delaying this, and I think there's a lot of work has gone in this.
Lots.
But we could then still be open to fine-tuning it in January, and so I leave the motion up to you.
I will do that as long as we have the opportunity to fine-tune it, because I think this is a great basis for our workshop.
The motion is adoption in principle pending further input at the workshop.
Second it.
Seconded by Councillor Robinson. Any discussion on the motion? I'll leave you at the order that we've got on the floor. It's Councillor Robinson.
Thank you.
This is a tremendous amount of work, and I appreciate all the different sources of information that our staff went to get this. And I think it's a critical piece of information, certainly, and I think about my role as a city councilor. I think this is a critical piece of information. It helps inform me about where we ought to be going. The challenge that I always have with this is this comes right after we've done some budgets. And I think this has to come before we do budgets. So, or is this for the next budget in 2011? Because I think from a planning perspective, your budgets, you have your strategic plan, your business priorities, and then your budget. And so, if this is for 2011, if that's what if this is what we're starting with, that's great. Like that, this is great information that we need to move forward. But if this is what's supposed to inform us around 2010, it's like we've just passed 3 readings. And so I'm still struggling with the 30,000-foot view of what comes first and what informs us, because a lot of this information was information in our budget package. And I went through it, and I combed through it to help inform me about, are we spending money in the place that we want to be spending money? Because we're here because our public voted us here to be stewards. And as I think about what's informing me, this is the document. So my suggestion is that this is what's going to inform us for 2011, if we can't get one done between now and the next time we budget, or we make sure that we get this document done before we go into budget discussions, because that would, to me, make much more sense. I think it's something we ought to talk about, and maybe it's a council workshop piece that we can bring back. I'm not sure that it requires an answer of anything now, but that's just what I struggle with. It's a ton of work, and it's so valuable. I just want to make sure that we use it in the way it's supposed to be used. So that's all I'm going to say about it. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Lynch.
Thank you, Ms. Santarosa. I was kind of interested in the page 8. You were talking about the major trends that are coming forward. One was climate change, and you talked also about the signing of the Climate Action Charter, which commits us as a city to achieve carbon neutral operations by 2012. And of course, I think that's probably going to have some financial implications. And I'm wondering, is that target, I mean, that's what we're supposed to be doing. How realistic is it we're going to make that target, and where are we along the timeline now? How are we doing working towards that goal?
We report out on an annual basis and reported out to Council in April on where we are with achieving our GHG emission reductions. And we're about a third of the way to achieving our emission reduction target of 30% by 2015, which is different than the carbon neutrality by 2012. The carbon neutrality, in terms of whether or not we will achieve, we're still measuring that, and the plan is to have another report out to Council in the spring, so we'll have a better sense of where we're at in achieving that. There is potentially the use of carbon offsets to help achieve carbon neutrality. So that's something that Council may need to consider, but we're not sure at this point, and we'll have a better sense of when we report out in the spring.
So I guess two questions. How are we measuring the carbon neutrality? And I gather that by carbon offsets, we're talking about purchasing them.
Possibly. That might be something that we might need to consider, but again, we're not sure at this point whether that will be necessary. Which
obviously would have an impact on our budget if we were purchasing offsets. So when the report will be in?
We're anticipating April, May.
Okay, I'll look forward to that report then. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Skora.
Thank you very much. Okay, two items on page 6 here. We're still talking about I'm glad we're going to have the workshop on this, but the council entered into the livability accord with Langley, Surrey, and Abbotsford. I think we need to rethink that one. I think the last 3 years have been a disaster. I see nothing happen for Coquitlam with that accord that we signed, except that it cost us money. Secondly, I noticed we talk about affordability and accessibility, and that's a good thing to talk about it, but we got to be very, very careful that we don't take over the headaches from something over that's going to cost the city a lot of money, and it's a provincial and federal jurisdiction rather than Coquitlam jurisdiction on homeless shelters and that type of deal. I noticed that you said homeless count have shown a 140% increase in the number homeless in the Tri-City since 2005. It's a staggering number, and you can see where the provincial government's coming from, and the federal government is foisting it onto into the municipal government, and I think that's something we've got to be very, very careful how many times we mention it, how many times we talk about it. Okay? Those two.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Reamer.
Thank you. It's an excellent report, and I would very much appreciate more time to discuss it. I'm particularly interested in the area of city governance and openness and transparency and fairness with respect to how we operate as a city. And I've been on the Ombudsman's website recently and looking at what their mandate is, and looking at some of the complaints that have been forwarded to them, local government complaints that citizens have had. And I think that's an important component of this particular strategic report. And so that is of interest to me, and I will look forward to being able to further discuss that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much on behalf of all of council. There's a lot of work been done, and we're going to go away and figure out if there's any refinements that we'd like to make to it as well.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much.
That concludes tonight's agenda. didn't vote.
We haven't voted on it yet.
Oh, sorry.
And that was my mistake. So we have a motion to adopt in principle. Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Outstanding.
Now that concludes the agenda.
There you go. Motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Robinson, second by Councillor McCannell. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.